Today I'm going to give you guys my first impressions of the AtGames Legends Ultimate's arcade cabinet. This is Steve from Restalgia, and let's get started. So before we get started, I'd like to give a big shout out to the team at AtGames for sending me this review unit. The machines aren't available yet in Canada, but they still made it work to get one of these out to me, and it is really greatly appreciated. If you are not yet subscribed to the channel, please consider it. I'll be doing a bunch of videos on this cabinet with different features and ways to modify it and things like that. And with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and take a detailed look at this cabinet. So AtGames hasn't always had a great reputation within the gaming community for putting out high-end or quality products, and to be honest, I've always felt like their products were cheaply made and meant to be marketed towards maybe younger children or entry-level video gamers. That being said, when I first heard about and saw the Legends Ultimate arcade cabinet, I was really skeptical. I was worried about them putting out a product like this, marketing it towards the older generation of gamers, and then not building it to spec. Well, I can tell you that I was completely wrong. This cabinet is easily the best quality cabinet money can buy for under $600. I was completely blown away by the design, the scale, and the quality of everything. To start, let's go ahead and take a look at the side and the front panels. The side panels are essentially mirror images of themselves, and they showcase a handful of different characters with the included games, but a lot of them are essentially Disney IPs. We've got Star Wars, we've got Simba, we've got Aladdin, and Fix-It Felix is displayed there among some of the other characters like the giant centipede or the ship from Asteroids. Along the bottom we've got an array of Tetris blocks which kind of really add to that retro appeal of the cabinet, and it does give it a really nice finishing touch. All in all, the side art does actually look really good together. The front panel is super simplistic and basic. As with Arcade 1-Up, AtGames decided to display some of the flagship titles included in the cabinet on a stock black background here. We'll see things like Aladdin, Joe and Mac, Missile Command, Burger Time, Star Wars, Tron, and a few others. Out of the box, the entire screen assembly came ready to go. Included there, we've got a lit marquee, we've got high quality dual channel stereo speakers, we've got a beautiful 24.5-inch widescreen LCD panel with a really nice retro style screen bezel and easy access to all of the cable management to get the control board connected. You can tell that AtGames really spent a lot of time and they put a lot of thought in designing how the cabinet would be built. And finally, we're going to go ahead and take a look at probably the most important part of the entire cabinet, which would be the control deck. The panel is really well designed, it looks sharp, the artwork is really nice, and it's got a good flow to it. As I just mentioned, the artwork's got a nice retro-inspired look, and the panel itself is a really good size for two people to actually play on. A lot of you guys are familiar with the Arcade 1-Up machines. They are relatively small, so when you get two people on them, it can feel tight. The joysticks on this panel feel really high quality too. They're nice and tight, and they've got great click and awesome feedback. I would guess that these are some of the higher end Sanwa clones that can be used. These are some of the best, if not the best, that I have felt on any multicade for sure. The buttons also feel great. The micro switches used have a really good feel to them. The buttons spring right back, and when playing games, they have absolutely no delay. AtGames included a rewind button, which is only compatible with some games, two start buttons, which also act as your coin insert buttons, and then finally we have one central menu button, which is used to change some of the in-game displays, the settings, or to back out to the main menu. Next, you're going to see that we have two very high quality spinners. The rotation on these things is unreal. They've got a great spin on them and they just feel really smooth. And then finally, right in the middle of the control panel, we have a trackball. This isn't the absolute best trackball that I've ever used, but it is actually really good. And I've got to say, it's got a great feel to it and it is really responsive. Our power and volume controls are located in the top right corner. The power button has a great feel to it, and it's not a momentary push button. Instead, it stays down when it's pressed, and it releases when it's pressed again. Your volume buttons have a huge range. You've essentially got 100 different levels of volume, and it does really help with being able to adjust exactly how loud you want to listen to your games. On the other corner of the panel, we have 2 sets of HDMI and USB inputs, as well as a button that toggles between which HDMI feed you want displayed on the cabinet. This essentially opens up the cabinet to a ton of different additional features and makes major mods to the cabinet essentially moot. You don't really need to do anything crazy. You could potentially throw in an HDMI splitter so that way you could hide components within the cabinet, but a lot's not necessary. AtGames seems to have kept in mind that people do modify these things and that they want to kind of put their own thing in them, so they've made it very easy to do that. Now, I'll be doing some additional videos just like I mentioned with some really cool things that can be done, so stay tuned for those. Assembly was honestly really easy. I can say that after building a ton of Arcade 1-Up machines quite a few times, this cabinet still took me less than half the time of any Arcade 1-Up machine I've done. Most things came pre-assembled and everything was really clearly identified. The machine went together incredibly well. I didn't have any problems getting things to fit together, and it just felt incredibly solid. Overall assembled, the unit stands about 5.5 feet tall and feels really comfortable to stand in front of and play. One thing that I wish was a little bit different is the angle of the screen on it. If they were to angle the screen back maybe an extra 5 or 10 degrees, I feel like it would be a little bit more comfortable on the player's neck. But other than that, the cabinet looks and feels really well done. Now, this cabinet has a ridiculous amount of features built into it. The cabinet comes with 350 games built in, which can be filtered by developer or by console or by what kind of controller you want to use to play them. But I do gotta say that 350 games does sound like a lot, but to be honest, the game list is a bit lackluster. There are some really great games on here, do not get me wrong, but AtGames included in many cases many different console versions of the same game. I can appreciate what they were trying to go for, but I think having lesser quality ports added alongside arcade originals doesn't really make a ton of sense. That being said, if nothing more, the games preloaded are just a bonus compared to all the other features of this cabinet. AtGames has introduced a service called Arcade Net. Now, this is a Netflix style feature that allows you to pay a monthly fee in exchange for a growing list of additional games that are to be streamed directly to your cabinet. Now, this is a really cool feature in theory, made better by the fact that they're planning to allow you to download these games to your own cabinet so they live right on your own system and you don't actually have to stream them anymore. That being said, the current list of games is pretty small, but AtGames has said that they plan on growing the catalog to really increase the value of the service. I did notice that while I was testing the Arcade Net that I had some latency issues, and for the best results I highly recommend that you're going to want to connect your arcade cabinet directly into your modem with an Ethernet cable. Now keep in mind, I have some of the fastest residential internet that you can get with 1 gigabit per second download speeds and 970 megabit per second upload speeds. So it wasn't good to see as much lag as I did, but I also understand that the service is still in beta and AtGames is working to substantially improve the customer experience. So what I'm hoping is that in a little bit of time, this will be substantially better and playing games off of the AtGames server will actually run a lot smoother. Speaking of customer service and experience, I want to stop and I want to give a huge shout out to AtGames in general. Out of the box, I had a bunch of questions and I had a couple issues with connectivity and firmware, and the responses I got from the team were incredibly fast and very efficient. Even after posting a question in the official AtGames Legends Ultimate Facebook group, which I will leave a link in the description down below, the CEO of AtGames personally reached out to make sure I'd been taken care of. I was completely blown away by this. If you're familiar with the Arcade 1-Up customer service, you know this is a huge difference. So thanks to the team and other Facebook users for getting me up and running so quickly. So getting back to the additional features, there is another big feature that's included that I think is absolutely awesome. It's called the Bring Your Own Game feature, which essentially gives you 2 main options. The first option is to stream your own games from your home PC to the cabinet. Now this is a relatively new feature, and I'm not 100% sure how the control deck will integrate with this feature, but you can essentially pop a keyboard and mouse directly into one of the 2 USB ports on the control deck, and you can control everything that way for sure. The next option is designed for people who maybe don't have a powerful enough gaming PC at home to play certain games. Now I was able to test this out and played a few rounds of Fortnite. The game's played fairly well, but you're definitely going to want a decent internet connections because there was some noticeable latency issues, just like with the Arcade Net service. And again, I'm not 100% sure if this is because these features are still in beta or not, but it was absolutely noticeable. The game was still perfectly playable, and I was able to make it through the round and get to first place, so it obviously wasn't that bad. And I think given some additional time, this feature is going to be really handy for some people who are looking for a streaming service like that. Now that being said, using the AtGames servers will come at a cost of approximately $1 per hour of play, with discounts offered when bulk time is purchased. I think this is a little bit high, especially with latency issues that I'm experiencing, but AtGames seems to really want to improve the user experience and are listening to their customers, so the feedback to them will be well received. Going along with the Bring Your Own Games feature, AtGames has released a line of blast devices that can be plugged directly into these cabinets. Now originally you could pop them into your TV, but they are also compatible with the cabinets, which is really nice. And it's a nice little add-on feature where you can purchase these sticks with the preloaded titles that you may be interested in, pop the HDMI stick into a port on the panel with its USB for power, and you can load it up. Now the advantage of this is that you can actually use the arcade control panel to play the games rather than using their cheaper controller included in the box. I found that the controllers don't really feel that good, and they definitely are a lot more enjoyable when you're playing them with the arcade panel. Now there's also an awesome add-on tool that allows you to load your own ROMs to the cabinet and play them too. You just load them onto a USB stick with a couple of little bits of help from some software, and you'll be able to play pretty much any of your arcade favorites on the machine. Now there's a bunch that don't work, but I'll talk about those in another video. I'm going to be doing a standalone video tutorial showing you guys step by step exactly how to do this. So subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Lastly, we have our options menu, which essentially allows for basic adjustments, access to our Wi-Fi settings, the cabinet information including current version and firmware, as well as things like adjusting the joystick from an 8-way joystick to a 4-way joystick for specific games. Honestly, I am completely blown away by this cabinet. When I compare this side by side with any of the Arcade 1-Up cabinets, you can really see a huge difference, not only in the size, but in the quality as well. Even when you include the riser, there is still a huge difference in size. For someone who is looking for an at-home arcade cabinet and they're limited on space, this is probably going to be your best bet, and I highly recommend it. It really is one of the best ones on the market for this price. Now that's all I've got for you for this video. Thank you so very much for watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel because, like I said, I'll be doing a bunch of different videos showing you guys some really awesome features and some mods for this cabinet and others like it. Leave a comment in the comment section below and tell me what your impressions of this cabinet are. Let me know your thoughts. Thanks again, and I'll talk to you guys again real soon.